Hi, thanks for tuning in. And
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 and up the people.
well, we had a viewer write us. A number of people have been curious about free will, and have a lot of people throughout the time that Arthur and I have talked about free will, and the years that we've really been looking at that issue, have had a lot of problems with the concept that we propose, which is that humans do not have free will. And someone in particular wrote an email asking, so
Imagine
maybe
what if there's no free will, what that would do to the song, I did it my way. Yeah, you had to, you jerk, because you didn't have any free will. Anyway.
Okay, right, but so that's where we're going with this show, I think, and some of you wrote in to say, okay, well, maybe you could discuss what does that mean? What are is there any freedom? What are the limits of human freedom?
Did you ever consider, Willard, freedom in the minds of others, or in the opinion of others? I can't remember what Colonel Kurtz told.
Apocalypse Now. Well,
Anyway.
as you said, quoting somebody who seemed to have gone insane, that's a good
To
starter.
dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe. Yeah, if you care about that kind of thing.
So then this seemed like a good topic, considering what's happening in the Middle East right now.
Up the people.
That there's people are actually out there in the streets fighting for freedom. And if freedom is a completely illusory concept, I mean, what are they doing wasting their energy on that?
When this age is over and the new day comes at last,
Comes along.
there will be song and dancing in the streets. Life will be so heavenly. What a blessing it will be. The truth will set you free. To wait till the ripoff comes around again. And an unenlightened populace, I don't care how wonderful and heady the revolution is, it's going to wind up in the same bunch of pigs at the top. They'll have different faces and different names, but they'll be porkers.
Well, that was the lines Arthur quoted was from a song written by a very cynical British friend of his. So,
Universal rock and roll.
Right.
Some would say, he would say realistic, not cynical.
Well, maybe we could talk about, because it's been quite some time since we talked about free will really focused on this show. So maybe we could, and if you were interested to see our earlier show on the topic, you can always go to our website, and then in the archive of shows, there's a list of everything we've done. This is like 45 or so, and I'm sure there's one called Free Will. But so why do we think there is no free will? 'Cause that when I look at the beliefs, human beliefs, I would say the belief that humans have free will is perhaps tops. I mean, that we cling to that. That is our most cherished belief.
Yeah. Also, we happen to also think it's the most cruel, vicious, hateful, murderous, nonsensical belief of the human mind.
And so there's a number of different ways that we can come at why we don't believe in free will. But the one I'll talk about is that because, as if you've watched the show with any regularity, you know that we believe that the human race is not in touch with reality. That our mind-generated reality is where we live, and it does not match.
We have no
reality.
idea what reality is. Period. We can label stuff and categorize stuff and pick dung apart on the jungle floor with a stick and label the smaller and smaller pieces until the pieces of dung become waves and particles. Oh my God, now the monkey is really bewildered, and we think we know what that is. We don't know what dung is.
Right.
At a certain level, we don't know what anything is.
Right.
We're out of touch with reality, but we walk around thinking like we know. We're hip, fashionably trendy people living in Nashville. Not me. I'm not trendy at all.
Okay, but let me just finish my thought, which is, so this mind-generated reality is constructed by our perceptions being filtered through assumptions and beliefs in our mind, the vast majority of which we are completely unaware of. We don't even know this process is going on. So by the time we become aware of something, we have already interpreted it, filtered it through our beliefs, and set it to match our preconceptions. And so when we respond to something, we're not responding to the world as it is. We're responding to the world as it is filtered through our preconceived ideas about the world. So we are not freely choosing to do things. We are stimulus response machines based on these unconscious beliefs and assumptions that make up our mind filtration system. So there's, we think we're the conscious originator of our thoughts and deeds. And that is, that is a real fantasy, that we are basically everything we do comes up through unconscious processes. And our conscious mind comes along afterwards and tells a nice story about how we did the things we did, how we thought to do these things. That's just a story we tell ourselves to make ourselves feel better. So that's just one way of looking at freedom.
I'm so bored with us. I really am. Why don't you people call us and say something intelligent? I mean, people come up to us in the street. I love your show. Yeah, what do you love? My big boobs. What? What's your kick? What's your trip? Call our number 808-8014 and say something smart. Give us something to talk about. Ask us to expand on us.
Well, somebody
I'm really
did.
sick of this. I'm
Somebody
going to
did
quit.
ask us to.
I swear to God, I'm going to stop.
Somebody
this.
did ask us to expound on freedom. So
yeah, okay. So
that's
here
what we're
it
doing
is.
here.
We're expanding on freedom. I don't know anything about freedom. I know a lot about slavery.
All right, we'll talk about that.
I'm enslaved to this, to my mind. When this tells me to jump, I jump, and I don't come down till it tells me to. A lot. Mm-hmm. This has ruled my life. This decided I was a certain way when I was still pooping in my pants, and I've lived my whole life on variations of that. Fixed theme. I am the same person as I am loading my diapers when I was 5 years old. That's slavery. That's not freedom. Let's define our terms maybe first.
Okay.
We have a nifty definition of free. You know what it is? Free is unrestrained by limitation. Just think about that. Unrestrained by limitation. Now, if you think you're free, if you think about that definition for 1 second, you'll see, first of all, that free is an absolute state. Mm-hmm. You're either free or you're not. You're either free, which means you're completely, absolutely unrestrained by any limitation whatsoever. And if you think that's where you're at, then I suggest you get psychiatric help as quickly as possible. I imagine there are a few free clinics that Ronnie Reagan didn't close down that, maybe they can give you some medications to at least keep you from becoming violent. Nobody's free.
Nobody's unrestrained by limitation.
Nobody's unrestrained by limitation. And if you're not free, how the hell do you think you have free will? Let's get the other definitions out, because without agreeing on the definitions, without defining our terms, we're just really lost in space. We're building the Tower of Babel, which has been going on forever. Free, unrestrained by limitation, will, intention made manifest. Even if it's just in the mind, even if you intend to go to the store for ice cream at 2 o'clock in the morning, you go to Ingles or Walmart or another 24/7 there to serve your Royal American rear end. You can have the intention, whether you move on it or not. You've intended it. I intend it. As soon as Dancing with Stars reruns over, I'm going to get up and go to the store for ice cream. It's will, it's intention made manifest, at least in the mind, and acted out on, of course.
Right.
So free will is intention unrestrained by limitation, made manifest. I'm trying to think who would be an example of that. The genie in the bottle. Whatever you want.
That's right.
Boom, you got it.
Right.
You got it, Toyota. I mean, you got it. There it is. Anything you want, exactly what you want, instantaneously.
Right.
Anybody got that out there in TV land? Shh, give me a break. Once again, psychiatric help. I'll try to get a number for mental.
Okay, so yeah, and that we have to remember that we're putting out our definitions, and so that the discussion is based on
808-8014. Refute it.
Accepting
free, unrestrained by limitation.
Right, our definitions. However, And then, a lot of people will say, okay, I mean, I can see where unrestrained by limitation really does get at the essence of what the word free means. But as with your definition of love, Arthur and Katie, which is also an absolute state.
The experience of unconditional acceptance of what is.
Your definitions have a dandy way of being too hard for human beings to experience and accomplish. So, I mean, there's got to be some relative states here that then have meaning in my life.
I love you.
A relative state of love where I accept you to the best of my ability.
Love your ass.
And how about where I'm free?
Oh, Senator, love your suit. I wish I could do a Hannibal Lecter.
Well, so I was thinking about giving an example of freedom, of free will, that while you were talking, Arthur, and it kind of fits in with love. And that's when you think about our modern day culture, as opposed to other traditional cultures where they arrange marriages, and you have no choice at all in who you're going to marry. That nowadays we live in a culture where you are free to go out and choose the one you're with. And so you could say, if you believe in free will, that I freely chose to marry Arthur. And well,
there's a term for that, clinical masochism, I think.
I was waiting for something like
or
that.
sadism.
Okay. I didn't want to be the one to say it. Because
Nothing could be farther from the truth. This is Katie's trying to play devil advocate, but even she can't.
No, but that's I'm going to use this as an example of how it's absurd to think that I freely chose to be in a relationship with you. And I've talked about this in another at least one other show where I've only had one other long-term relationship besides Arthur, and that was in college. It went for 3 years. And I met Arthur basically at the same time as this poor other unfortunate.
Is this sad enough for you?
What, that I've only had 2 long-term relationships? That's how insecure I am.
Well, actually, it beats me. I've had 3. And they've all ended in disaster, except for this one. Well, I mean, this is learning to live with your disaster.
I was going to say, this is just 2 people,
again,
that's right, that just have been willing to put up with disaster because it's maybe, the disaster is better than the disaster you don't know. Okay. But the point is that I'm trying to lumber towards is that after I started getting to know Arthur and I started seeing the dynamics of the relationship I had with Arthur, I realized that most of the dynamics were exactly the same as with this man I was in a relationship with for 3 years. Things I liked and things I didn't like were both present. We played the relationship games virtually identically. And exactly, what a coincidence. And so what I realized from that experience was that, not that, as I said, that I pulled, just drew 2 jerks to me out of the, there's all these nice guys out there and I had to pull 2 that would, treat me the same way badly. No, that I unconsciously look out there in the world of available men, and that's because I'm heterosexual, I find the ones who will have the psychological makeup that they will interact with me in the way I think I need to be interacted with in order to have a relationship, which is someone who plays a dominating role, so I can play the submissive female. And I'm not interested in a man that doesn't have that psychological configuration. You may be the most wonderful man in the world, but I'm not going to want to be in a relationship with you because you wouldn't want to be in a relationship with me because you're too nice. You won't dominate me, so I can, play the. So what I'm saying here,
you get what's going on over here.
I have
There's
no
free
idea
will
this
in
is going on.
Only a certain type will do. You who are serial monogamist, or you've been in a number of relationships, you can relate to what we're saying. It's all the same. Because, I wrote a song once, I've done it on this show, my country song. I don't care if you still say you love me, I simply don't believe it could be true. 2/3 of who I am is someone I can't stand. So there must be something awful wrong with you. Only you will do. Only you will reinforce my act. Only you will keep my lumbering circus train on track. When I hold your gland, I'm in your hand.
You know, and
No
you could ask the
accidents.
question, you know, are
Free my
people
ass.
happier in their marriages today than they were a couple hundred years ago when things were more arranged? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, look at the divorce rate. Certainly, we are not making a very good success out of our supposed freedom.
Well, when there's no hope for other,
Right.
you damn well are invested in making your bed. You're making the best of it.
Right.
You know, unless you really want to, you know. Yeah, so there was no choice back then. You were
Right.
stuck for life with
Right.
it. So you'd better just look on the sunny
it up,
side,
so to
always
speak.
on the sunny side.
You didn't hear what I said.
Suck it up. I'm sorry, I'm really kind of out of it today.
Never mind.
Suck it
Never
up.
think about it. Okay, never mind. So, okay, freedom, relative freedom. So, because there I was kind of disparaging the relative freedom, saying that maybe the fact that we're free to choose who we want to marry
Ha ha ha.
has not brought about any happiness. So it sounds like
It
I
had
don't
to
really
be you.
think that freedom is and you know, and as I was thinking about this, I thought that you know that we can distinguish between like political freedoms, freedom of speech, from the free will argument. That I mean, I am exercising my freedom of speech right now,
Or
which
North
is
Korea would be lined up against the
That's
wall
right.
and probably clubbed to death with, you know, they wouldn't want to waste a bullet. They're so goddamn poor.
so. You know, we are relatively much more free now than in any other age in history. And
Whee!
we were just looking at George Carlin's list of 7 words that you know can't say on television. You know, and we still couldn't say them here on URTV in 2010. I guess when he made that list in like 72 or something.
Well, you can say them on URTV after 11 o'clock.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Or
damn
that's right.
It's one
That's
of the
right.
reasons we moved to Asheville, because of URTV.
You can actually act them out after 2 a.m. if you really want to.
Yeah, that's right, apparently.
Yeah.
Save that for our final show.
So, you know, I think this is what's going on in Egypt, is this fight to be able to speak, the fight to be able to assemble freely, the fight to have these kinds of freedoms of expression, that it's not freedom in this way of I'm unrestrained by limitations inside my mind. It's that what's in my mind, I am free to put out into the world. And that's
Within certain limits.
with, you know, and I think that maybe what we're really trying to say here more than anything else, and this definitely applies to the political realm, is when we think we're free when we're not, there's no better condition to be continued as a slave. Because if you think you're free when you're a slave, you're not going to try and throw off your shackles.
That's right.
So the more honest we are about the limits of our freedom, the more clearly we can see how we can expand those limits out to their however far we can go.
I think what we're really about is humility. You know what?
Yeah,
Humility is always required.
yeah,
That's what the born-again experience is. It's just you realize, wow, I'm full of shit. I don't know what I'm doing. My life is a joke. I'm not in control of my life. It's controlling me. And they go, Lord, Lord, and give up and surrender to something greater than themselves. And I've had it a couple of times. And you have this sense of a huge burden coming off your back because you're, at least at this point, in touch, experientially getting objective reality, objective facts that you are not in control of your life. You don't even know who you are, folks. Nobody out there in TV land knows who they are.
Right.
I keep hammering on this point.
right.
And someone who doesn't even know who they are, how free can that be? Mm-hmm. What are you walking around with your lifelong, masterpiece theater, your persona, your face mask held up in front of you, trying to be cool and trendy Asheville, drinking your Chardonnay in a sidewalk cafe, and being so world weary, I've seen it all. You're full of crap. You haven't seen anything. You should, God, why don't they synthesize really great acid like they did back in the when was it? I can't remember. Too many drugs. Now, back in the
Early
early
70s.
70s, late 60s. Oh man, you'll find out how much you know if you do that, but you can't. Not an endorsement to do acid, kids, unless you can find some really great stuff. That's always my advice to the young. If you're going to do drugs, do good drugs. Don't waste your money on faltering, half-hearted highs. I think I saw on TV the other night they're snorting bath crystals now.
Yes.
It causes horrendous hallucinations and people, killing themselves, suicidal thoughts, just totally derange you. Yeah, but at least they can't get their hands on marijuana legally. At least we can imitate, the war on drugs. We're still winning that much. They're catapulting it across the border now. Bales of pot,
I mean, how free are we in this country? I mean,
we're the freest country in the world.
we're exceptional, as a matter of fact.
We are. We're the best people in the world.
So let's think
And
of
we'll
some
bomb
things.
anybody who says different.
Let's think of some things. You know what it came up for me was clothes. I mean, we're born naked. That's our natural state, naked. Animals walk around naked all the time, but try walking around downtown Asheville naked. I mean, as liberal as Asheville is in terms of clothing,
I think some have come pretty close.
but that's the thing. It's just like there's still, you must wear clothes. The human body there's just something really dirty about the human body.
Saw 5 in 3D.
I mean, what is so wrong with being the human body? Natural, the way it is.
And that's without getting into that. That's just another constraint.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Morality, so-called morality,
That's
the
right.
kind of morality where you can go watch 5 movies made about people being forced to do the most beastly, unspeakable things. I'm talking about the Saw series. That I read something about the audience. A typical reaction when someone's head blows up graphically flying through the air is the audience bursting into applause. That shit is entertainment. But the word shit coming out of my mouth right now, ooh, rush to your phone and call URTV and complain about the language. Oh, lordy me. He said a dirty word. What did Colonel Kurtz again say from Apocalypse Now? They drop liquid fire on them from out of their airplane, from the air, but they won't let them write the F word on the side of their airplane. Mm-hmm. That's your morality.
Okay, so
you can't show people having sex and beautiful 70 millimeter. I'll show you 3D. Ooh. 3D sex. There's a
okay.
interesting
Wait,
concept.
Arthur, I was trying to give
violence,
examples of
constraints on freedom.
Constraints on freedom.
Yeah, well, I think
just in our
it's just
society.
complete madness. Morality, the
Right.
constraints of morality,
Right.
And what a morality you've got.
Well, I'll move like that, in terms of, say, people who want to have more than just a man and a wife, or 2 people in a relationship. Why does it have to be just 2 people
I'll tell you why,
in a
because you'll
marriage?
wind up with man on dog.
Well, but I'm
unless the
talking
dog
about
gives the permission,
constraints
but
on our freedom, okay? So quit diving immediately into that sort of sarcasm. I mean, why is
I
it
feel
that
sarcastic
you can
today.
only have
We've
2
had
people in a relationship? I don't understand that. That's a constraint on my freedom. If I want to live in a marriage of there's 4 people in the marriage, 2 men and 2 women together, and we're all 4 of us living together, what's wrong with that? If that's what we choose as consenting adults want to.
How long has Big Love been on?
Yeah, exactly.
Big Love.
But there's a real constraint on our freedom is that we are, and
The
it's not
government
just
telling you who you can go to bed
but it's
with.
not just our government. It's like this mass agreement that
Take the
this
Islamic
is
world,
the
for
best.
instance.
This is what you can do. This is the limits of your freedom.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So that's a real limit on my freedom. So what's other limits on my freedom?
Morality, that's a big one. We just
Yeah.
talked about that. But
Right.
any laws,
Right.
all sorts of laws, like you can guzzle alcohol till it comes out your butt.
Mm-hmm.
You know why? because you can still drag your hungover ass to work the next morning, and that's all they care about. Farming human beings is to get the shaggy beast lumber back to their desks. You want fries with it today? Oh my God. That kind of legal morality of alcohol is fine. Tobacco, just suck cigarettes until the cancer just kind of starts growing out of the side of your head, which it does. But marijuana, that legions of people in this country have known forever that it's just pure BS about it being a deadly drug and in the same category, Schedule 1, as heroin. Kiss my ass, you stupid mongoloids. You're so stupid. Don't you ever question? Do you have a tiny mote of intellectual curiosity in you? Or are you just plodding ahead with the herd, nose to anus, the herd animal in front of you, just following what you're told without question? America's the greatest country in the world. God shed his grace on thee, and look what we did with it. Mm-hmm. Country that was bought and sold by millionaires, billionaires, coming soon, trillionaires. You're a slave. You're not a democracy. You're in a plutocracy that's totally owned by the rich. And they're going to dictate your morality. It's all for business. It's the reason what's going on in Egypt. Mm-hmm. Speaking of human farming, you know what the United States foreign policy is? It's being in bed with the farmers, never the people. Mm. We're not in bed with the herd. Right. We're in bed with the farmers. Right. Yeah, guy with a pitchfork and the cattle prod. El Supremo down in Latin America. And you know what the consistent threat is? Any SOB that doesn't get in the way of American business needs. That's what drives it, is the money. You don't know about your morality. It's all about the money. Well, and screw the people. The hell with the Latino people. Hell with the people on the south of the border country. As long as United Fruit can just get in there and do their deed and get their fruit, get their coffee, get their cheap labor. They've sent all the damn jobs in America. This used to be a manufacturing country. We used to actually make stuff. But you know what? Your masters of the universe, your true masters, those slaves, sent all the good jobs overseas so they could sweat the piss out of people for a nickel an hour and not have to have those niggling regulations. And now Obama's got the temerity to stand up and tell you got to compete with the world, America. Up yours. Up yours, Obama. Well, we used to compete. We had a manufacturing base. And all this, you got to globalize, you got to compete. Anyway, free. Well, you think you're free? I mean, just on the political level alone, the economic level, you're a slave. Slaves aren't free.
Well, it's just political freedom. It is interesting. We, as I said, looked up George Carlin a little bit this week because, as a matter of fact, we'd seen a wonderful.
Oh my God, it was so satisfying. I'm gonna have to rent it. We saw it on Turner Classic Movies.
Yes, it's because we really. What I'm talking about is With Six You Get Egg Roll. Doris Day was her last movie that she ever made, and
command performance.
What we couldn't believe was George Carlin was in it. I was really excited. Wow, George Carlin.
This must have been when he was a real straight comic. We figured.
1968. I kept waiting for him to show up
just before he flipped out.
Because they showed a club where there was some, musicians playing. I thought, well, surely at some point George Carlin will do a stand-up routine or something. And I finally figured out by almost the end of the movie that this really annoying, completely annoying character, that's who had to be George Carlin, just from where his name was in the credits.
He owned or managed or at least worked at a drive-in restaurant where they just went back to. That's where they had their little rendezvous.
That's right.
And he would appear at the window in his white uniform and white cap like a Sonic, and he was just totally obnoxious and repulsive.
He was really repulsive, and I couldn't. And so, but then by the time I figured out that this had to be George Carlin, you never saw him again. So it was kind of frustrating.
When he'd been showing up like clockwork every 10 minutes throughout this deliciously horrible movie.
Anyway, that was his first appearance in a film. But so anyway, we were just curious about him, and we went online and looked up a few things about him. And one of the things that we read was that he I don't know when he quit voting in elections, but he did quit because he felt like.
Oh, yeah, I know when it was. He voted for McGovern.
That's right. McGovern was the last one.
And Dick.
He felt
Dick
like
Nixon.
that our political system gave the appearance of
choice,
and there really was no choice.
Excellent example.
Right.
Perfect example.
And I really felt this in 2004, and I almost didn't vote again after that because there was something about the way Kerry acted after he lost that made me think he didn't really care.
He didn't.
It didn't really matter to him. It was not like there's something
kind of
that was really
Al Gore
passionate
acted, quite
about.
frankly, Gore didn't put up a fight.
Right.
He said, for the good of the country.
Yeah, and it was like, wait
Screw
a
the country.
minute. You're going to concede to this guy, George W. Bush, and you're going to act like it's not an impactful in your life?
Gerald Ford. Oh my head. Oh, sorry, hit my head. But, for the good of the country, we're going to let this fellow Republican rat ass, Nixon, off the hook.
Yeah, and it was more like just he was being a good loser. And that wasn't the sense I had, that just John Kerry was just being graceful in defeat. It was more like
okay, that's
the
it.
system, there was a rigged system, and he was, so he knew he wasn't going to win. And it was real creepy. I felt it was a very creepy feeling.
You're an agricultural product. I'm a cow, you're a sheep. Chickens, ducks out there. Can we hear from the ducks?
We're reserving the pigs for who.
The pigs are in control. Did you read Animal Farm?
Yes.
The pigs run the show. The
Right.
insatiable pigs. So you think we're free, folks? You think this is a big deal? I mean, you think what's the result of walking around thinking you're in control and you have free will? Maybe that's what the Christians mean by sin. And we, in our book, Game of God, Recovering Your True Identity, gameofgod.com, we say that, what do we say? My mind went blank.
Sin.
Yeah. Evil and sin we define as believing in and or acting on a false belief. So you walk around thinking you have free will, you're sinning. You're engaging in evil because you have no humility. Humility would say, I really, in terms of no, there's another absolute. No means I know. Unconditionally, without qualification, I absolutely know. And as we've said many times, the only thing we know, we humans right now, is something's happening. I don't even know if you're out there. Or Katie's over there. Maybe I'm you're all Fig Newtons in my imagination. I don't think so. It's too much fun to have all these different perspectives. But if you are out there, the only thing you know absolutely, I suggest, is something's going on at this location. And I have tons of names and labels, and I can tell history about it. I can tell all about my life and stuff and what I do and what I think. Truth is, you don't know any of that stuff absolutely. Nothing. You do not know who you are. You don't know what you are. Neither does anybody else. You don't know where you are. Oh, I'm in the 30,000 light years from galactic central point in a typical spiral galaxy in a certain kind of quadrant of the universe somewhere. Think maybe in a galactic supergroup. Oh, yeah? Really? How nice for you. You don't know when you are. What time is it relative to what? The moon coming up?
That's right. We should.
You don't know what you're doing. You really don't know what you're doing. You know on a very superficial level, but dig a little deeper and you're going to find you don't even know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You damn sure don't know where you came from, and you damn sure don't know where you're going. You Christers in particular. Think you ever got a postcard from heaven, like a picture postcard maybe? Is that pushing it too much, Oh, we're just going to be singing and dancing. And
so somebody in that state of ignorance, I mean, what kind of basis is that for free will? I think is what you're asking.
How free is that? You don't know any of that stuff. You're a dying ignoramus, as we put it in one of our earlier treatises. Ignorant is a high state. To really be, to confess your sins. I don't know, Jack. Shoot. That's in touch with your ignorance. You actually know something then. He who doesn't know knows something. But he who knows doesn't know.
Well, you were talking about sin.
So ignoramus is somebody who thinks they know when they don't.
Right.
Like Curly Joe using a finger bowl as an eye cup at the formal dinner table.
Right.
That's an ignoramus.
Well, you were talking about sin, and that's one place I thought maybe we should go to, and that is the consequences of the belief in free will, which are very negative.
Oh my God!
Because when we think we have free will, that means we think we're responsible for everything we did in our lives, and I mean,
you freely chose.
That's right. So
you freely chose to
nobody
masturbate.
Made
Don't you know?
Do it. So therefore, you are. If you did something wrong, you are wrong because you chose it.
Jeffrey Dahmer knew what he was doing. He knew the difference between right and wrong. And according to the prosecutor, he had the prudence to use a condom when he had sex with a corpse. Now that's free will. By Adam and Eve. Take Adam and Eve. Now, that's the first example of free will right there. God gave them free will, and you see what they did with it? You think that's an act of free will or the greatest act of utter mega stupidity in the annals of humankind and all the 6,000 years of earthly history?
Well, I think that this is one of the reasons people don't believe in evolution. We like Bill Maher. I'm sure you've heard us refer to his show before.
He's got a couple of problems, so we like him very much.
And he had this Republican congressman from Georgia, what's his name?
Jack Kingston.
Who admitted that he did not believe in evolution.
I didn't come from a monkey, said a U.S. representative. I didn't come from a monkey. You damn sure look like you did. Looks like you're not that far from it.
But, and I was thinking about it afterwards. I think one of the reasons people really hate the idea of evolution, those who do, is because they don't see how humans could be made exceptional in that scheme of things. If evolution is true and there's this unbroken stream of development going on, well, how do human beings stand out in that scheme? I mean, we can always put ourselves at the top of the pyramid, but there's no break, there's no discontinuity, and we need a discontinuity to explain why we have free will and animals don't. And so I think that this is really, you're getting to the crux of why people will not believe in
because
evolution.
Animals have buttholes. We have buttholes. Right. Animals have eyes, nose, mouth. And us That's also. Right. Animals have reproductive urges. So do we.
Right. Animals kill for food.
They kill for food. They have wars.
That's right.
Us also.
That's right.
So there must be something that separates us from these beasts of the field.
Right. Because animals that think and use tools, that's obvious.
Yeah, right. So what is it? What could it be? What could really set us apart? I know, free will.
That's right.
We're walking with God Almighty. Mr. Adam and Mrs. Eve are walking in the cool of the evening with the Lord. And the Lord only gives them one freaking roll. There you are in bounty, fruit of paradise dropping into your hands. The birds of the air roosting on your shoulder and not doing it down your back. I mean, it's just perfect. It's always 70 degrees. The wind, the gentle breeze is blowing the trees all night long. Maybe there's no night. Maybe it's just always a groove. There's just one thing. It says God Almighty standing in front of you, talking down to you. Literally. One rule. Don't eat fruit off of that one tree. Mm-hmm. Oh, no. That's free will? Kiss my ass. Jesus God. Oh, my God, how long must I suffer you?
Okay, well, here, let me, when we were
I'll
talking...
tell you what Jesus said to his disciples. Eat me.
So,
Sam Kinison commentary.
Yes. One of the things I thought we were talking about about just a little while ago, about the one of the negative consequences of free will is the self-hatred and shame, because if you did something wrong, then you are wrong. And I thought about parents out there. Thank God I didn't have any kids, because I watch what parents go through, including Arthur. And, yeah, there's a lot of wonderful parts about being a parent, but my God, I'm glad I missed it. Anyway.
I'm glad you missed it too. I guarantee you we wouldn't be together.
We would not be together. Definitely the choice was between living with Arthur and having a child. They were not.
Not necessarily mutually exclusive.
You mean you're my child. I got it. Okay. Well, but what I'm thinking about is the parents out there struggling with training the child to, not just indulge in every desire and every wish, that comes your way.
But everybody else does it.
Right. It's like if you don't, then if you're not responsible for your actions, how can you be held accountable? How can you tell your child you should do better, you should not do this, and you should do this? If you have no free will, then there's the perfect excuse for just doing whatever you want to do without regard to the consequences, because I didn't have any choice in the matter. And, it sounds like a child's dream philosophy. And I was thinking about this, and I thought, for me, really, I think my philosophy really could come down to a hedonist. It's a hedonist philosophy. And I was really thinking about this one night, and then the very next day, and the Google quote of the day was an Abraham Lincoln quote that said, when I do good, I feel good. When I do bad, I feel bad. That is my religion. I was like, yes, that's exactly what I was just thinking the night before. And that
Hitler said, that was kind of Hitler's philosophy, when
right.
I did good, like into the concentration camps with you.
That's right.
I feel good. Hey.
That's right. And so we are multiple layered beings, and there are things that make us feel good on the physical level, like eating a gallon of ice cream. And then there are things that make us feel good because they're the ethical thing to do. And I think in my philosophy, part of my hedonist philosophy includes my metaphysics, which is that underlying everything is God, is the one. There is nothing but the one disguised as the many. And that one is that the underlying ground of all being is perfect love, truth, ethics, all those things that we want to be. And that's when we act in alignment with that underlying ground of being, that's when we feel the best. And so that's the natural good feelings comes when we are in alignment with that. And so with a child, what you want to do is help them feel that, so that they could, because the pleasuring of the superficial body level, that's kind of an easier thing to experience the good feeling of. And that's what you can train yourself to be more in line with that underlying ethos and feel
train
good with
yourself.
That. Yes. I mean, you can help remember, or help, like, okay, say, you think I don't want to have like sugar every single night of the week and not go
I got that
work
one
out?
easily, of course. As you can look at me and say that, and see who wins that battle. But I'm saying about somebody gave us a double credit on a piece of equipment we returned.
Right.
And chances are, we'd have gotten away with a few $100.
Right.
But just no.
Right.
It's not that we would be caught, or eventually we'd have to pay, or anything like that. It was just, believe me, I think I've got that much. It comes around. If that's where you're coming from, if you're dishonest, it's going to cost you. It's costing you immediately.
But that's
just
what I'm talking
looking
about.
over your shoulder kind of thing. It's a natural.
That's what I'm talking about.
Ethos.
Right. And so, and when I would say train the child, it's like you help them see that.
My grandmother, I went into a store once and thought I'd given the woman a $50, and I came in and had like 78 cents in change. I went, oh, wow, she gave me more than. My grandmother stopped the car. Actually, we were already going. She went back to the store and marched me in there. And I was like, I think you gave me too much change. And what I'd done mistakenly is give away my give my silver dollar that, was really special to me. I didn't realize I'd given her that instead of a $50.
So you actually got
instant
karma.
verification on instant validation that
Right.
doing the right thing
Right.
is, pays off.
Right. And that's what
You know
that's
what?
all
It
I
even
meant.
pays off if they tack you to a cross and
Right.
you bleed to death.
Right.
And you're done.
Right.
You're not reverting to their level. I think that guy named Jesus did that.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't threaten them with a preemptive thermonuclear retaliatory strike, not preemptive, but a retaliatory strike to waste them if they messed with them. You know what? I was just thinking about a little while ago. When we started, when we tortured prisoners under George Buttcake Bush.
Yes.
Oh, there's another word I use, but I can't. I really can't use that one on the air. When that creep, and all of you creeps who went along with it, supported torturing prisoners in Iraq, that was it on this country. I don't think you can even remotely get how we lost the high ground. I think maybe for good. Once you do that, I don't know how you can go back. I really don't, unless you repent in sackcloth and ashes in front of the nations. Mm-hmm. Like what's going on in Egypt? Yeah, there was. I drew a cartoon about a Latin American dictator, El Supremo, wearing this joke clown military uniform that they're so enamored of. Basically letting a female peasant have it. You see United Fruit off in the distance, and standing by, looking very noble up in the air, is Uncle Sam holding a case of aphrodisiacs, which he's preferring to El Supremo. Mm-hmm. We're always in bed with the wrong people, like the Shah of Iran. See how that turned out?
That's right.
Like Mubarak, who we've just been propping up, the Camp David Accord, please don't hate the Jews for $2,000 million a year. I won't hate anybody. You just give me the money. Keep it coming. Those are our beloved allies. It makes me want to vomit out my butt. When I hear somebody like Mubarak being described as, our ally in the Middle East. If we have allies like that, we're scum.
What is he, our ally because he's willing to have the renditions go to his country, so he'll his
bring them over.
His
We got
secret
plenty of
police will
facilities.
torture for us.
We do it to our own people, and a few more won't make any difference. We have plenty of room.
We're the experts. This is where Egypt was really exceptional.
We're screwed. You know what? And you know what it is? It's business. It's the corporate masters, the bankers, the hedge fund managers, the Wall Street Sharpies running the show. You're a slave. And when you realize how enslaved you are, oh, free America, maybe we'll have a chance to really take this country back. But I despair, even as thrilled as I am in my heart, when I see the people of the Middle East rising up and raising hell to get a pig dictator that we've been in bed with, this wonderful beacon of light in the West. I see it and I'm thrilled, but I'm also, I don't have any hope for it, because when you get a new bunch of grease balls in the positions of power and the money and the largest in that part of the world, babies, I've lived there. The greasing the palm just comes with the territory. I mean, baksheesh, dash, bribery, it's just a way of life. It's the way you do business over there. And it's utterly corrupt.
And you know what? When I think I mentioned that election of 2004, and another thing that really bothered me during that election was when we found out that both Kerry and Bush had been members of the Yale Skull and Bones Society, which I had never heard of before that election. And if you watch the movie The Social Network, I mean, that figured into what happened to Zuckerberg was he wanted to get into one of those societies at Harvard that were very hard to get into. And I was thinking after watching that film, we watched it a couple of weeks ago, like how much, us peasants out here.
Peasants.
I mean, I went to Northwestern, which is, one of the top universities in the country, but not Ivy League. And I'm totally unaware of that world, that exclusive world, and, what they call the elite, and the conservatives act like it's just this liberal thing. It's not. There is a real elite in this country that
Ruling
those of
class.
us, that are outside of it, it's like we really don't even know
Your little
what
children,
goes on.
your little children are never, most of you are going to ever have any kind of equal footing, educational opportunities, a chance to really rags to riches, all that BS. Maybe you'll get some mid-level management position in your life or something if you're really fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Most of you are just going to be slaves.
But
you're not going to have the opportunities of the ruling class. You're just not. You're not going to have, teachers in prep schools that have PhDs and that can teach you the refinements of education, not just the rote, just enough to get you into the factory, just enough to get you into the community college, just enough to get you the trade certificate. Because all they want is human farming. They don't want an enlightened populace. They don't want you to question and reason. I'm a redneck from North Florida. I came from working poor, but I have an inquiring mind. I have long hair. I didn't trust the system. I didn't like that. What do you mean go to Vietnam and shoot gooks? Up yours. I'm a conscientious objector with a alternative civilian duty for 2 years, like emptying beds in a mental hospital. I had that thrown out because of a bad knee, ballet knees. I was in love with a ballerina once, but that's another story. I'm not part of your army. Apocalypse Now, they were going to make me a major for this, and I wasn't even part of their army anymore. I've never been part of your army. About 10th grade, I had met under torture. I went out for football. I tried to be part of the elite. Thank God I failed. I may be poor. I may be a social misfit. But, oh, man, it's so nice. You know where freedom is? It's in the mind.
It is. That's
it is in the mind.
Sure.
If you can look at it, if you can get outside the herd, get your nose out of the butt of the animal in front of you and get out on the edge of the herd. It's quite a view out there. You see them all moving toward the cliff edge, And maybe up here you can ring the cowbell, clankety, 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 clank, and kind of get their attention and do your part to say, maybe you should wake up, oh free herd.
Well, that just kind of made it sound like you consider yourself freer.
I am freer.
Yes.
I know I'm crazy. Sometimes. When I do, I actually know something. When I know I'm insane, when I know that I mistake, that I don't know what reality is. But at least I know that much. I do know that I don't know what reality is.
Right.
That's humility. And I'm arrogant as hell a lot. Maybe you can tell.
But as I said earlier, that, what we're really out after here is not to say, there's no freedom, so just despair. We're saying that by recognizing the limits of our freedom now, we can, maybe expand the limits out and be freer in the future. And sometimes I think that we get so enamored of our time in history that we lose perspective on the scope of human history. And I think when you look at it 500 years ago, everyone in the planet was ruled by kings and princes and, just tyrants of one stripe or another. And the progression towards freedom has actually gone pretty fast when you look at it that way, how many tyrants have been overthrown and how it's spreading into all cultures in every corner of the globe. And what may happen in 200 or 300 years, there may be a level of democracy that we can't even really conceive of right now. We think this is a democracy because we go and vote once every 2 years or, every 4 years for some person's name on a ballot that we really didn't have anything to do with getting there.
You mean man on dog might be possible?
I don't, it's like we can't even really, I'm saying as 500 years ago, people couldn't have conceived of the kinds of freedoms we have today. So we can't even imagine what's ahead of us. And that's what I'm saying is let's not be complacent and say, wow, we're the freest country on the earth as if we've arrived at the end of history. No, we are midway somewhere in history. And this is part of the progress towards, well, mid means it's somewhere between the beginning and
We're
the
underway.
end. I'm just saying
not
we're
still-
somewhere in
we're
between.
still more to the dock.
We're not in the beginning and we're not at the end. That's all I
for
know.
sure.
And where we are in that progression, I don't know. But the point is, this is we're moving.
Yeah, well, we're moving, but I'll tell you what, that cliff edge that I just mentioned is
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
It's real. We have hydrogen bombs. Pakistan has 100 atomic bombs estimated right now. Soon to grow. Who's next?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with the condition of the environment, very delicate. Who knows what a very limited thermonuclear exchange between India and Pakistan could do. Dangerous times.
Mm-hmm.
Just the proliferation of atomic weapons in terrorists' hands. You know, Pakistan is a one rat-ass place held together by baling wire and 2x4s. Probably 1x4s. Plywood and baling wire. Oh, yeah. And Russia, rampant corruption, organized crime. And they have the hydrogen bomb.
Right.
Hello, New York. Yeah, there's a 5-megaton suitcase device. And bring your inspectors in. We'll show it to you. Here it is, all armed and ready to go. Now, here are our demands. Mm-hmm. Get those Jews out of Israel, or no more Manhattan. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do when the rent comes around? Karma. You play with my world like it's your little toy, you masters of war. Thank you, Bob Dylan.
Yeah, I just wanted to say this because people are like, oh, what's going to happen in Egypt? Maybe the Muslim Brotherhood. Well, I've read some about the history of the Iranian Revolution, and when that happened, there was a real strong democracy movement, very secular. It was a very secular society. The takeover by the Islamists was not a given at the time. But after the Shah, when he left, I think he went to Egypt, actually. But he was very ill. And so Jimmy Carter, let him come to the United States for medical treatment. And you have to know your Iranian history, where the U.S. had helped kick out the democratically elected Prime Minister Mossadegh in the 50s. And so when Jimmy Carter let the Shah come into the United States, the people in Iran believed that was preparatory to the U.S. reinstating the Shah. And what that did was all the most...
Take over the embassy?
Yeah, the embassy took over, and so the most virulent anti-American people were the ones who gained power, and so that's where the Islamist victory came over the democratic forces, because of the meddling of the United States, and So I'm just saying, in Egypt, the same sort of thing could happen, and just people would think that it just. That all of those things that happened in Iran had nothing to do with the United States, but there's definitely ways that our actions precipitated the Islamist takeover in Iran. So.
And now we've got weapons of the nuclear dust. If fire them we're forced to, well, fire them we must. One push of a button and a shot the world wide. And you don't count the dead when God's on your side. Again, Mr. Dylan.
Yep.
Hey, it's getting down to 1 minute. This is interesting.
Yeah.
Really didn't feel like doing this. I'm feeling myself getting a bit discouraged about this TV show thingy. We'll see. We need some more feedback from you. We need to know you're out there. Call 808-8014.
Well, and hopefully
just so you're watching, and give us something you'd like us to rap about.
hopefully-
Anything. Man on dog,
Yeah, we like
sex,
talking man on dog.
Sex. Politics. Sex.
Well, we're glad you tuned in, and check us out on questionameaning.com.
Farewell. Good show.